Hello, 6th grade, and welcome to 12.3 video. This video is going to be about making a table, a graph, and/or an equation to represent a problem context. So you can use this video in Unit 4 that pertains to Lesson 12.3. Let's look at this question together. The table shows how much Amanda earns for walking 1, 2, or 3 dogs. Using the table to determine how much Amanda earns per dog. And then we're going to write an equation that models this relationship between the number of dogs walked and the earnings. And use your equation to complete the table. So in our last video, we talked about independent and dependent variables. So the more dogs I walk, clearly the more money I will make. So my earnings depend on the amount of dogs I walk. So the dogs I walk is going to be X, and the earnings that I take home are going to be my Y, because Y depends on X. So let's look at this. If I walk one dog, I make $8. So I'm making $8 per dog. Two dogs would be $16 if I'm being charged at that same rate. And then 3 dogs times $8 a dog gives me my $24. So this question A says, for each column, compare the number of dogs walked and the earnings. What is the pattern? Well, we just noticed that for every dog we walk, we charge $8. So sometimes I complete the table even before I get to that part of the question. If I'm walking 5 dogs at $8 a dog, I would have made $40. If I walk $10, I would make $80. And then 20 dogs times 8 per dog gives me $160. And if you noticed, 2 dogs gave me $16. 10 times 2 is 20, therefore 10 times 16 is 160. That's another way to check it, just to show you. I'm starting to think that maybe I should be a dog walker. Make some pretty good money. So, for question B, based on the pattern, Amanda earns $8 for each dog she walks. Now let's talk about the equation that we would write. In this part C, they want E to represent the earnings and D to represent the dogs. So let's look at our Y. My earnings, or E, is equal to $8 times the dog. So no matter how many dogs I walk, it's going to be $8 per dog. So E represents the earnings. E is equal to 8D, or $8 per dog. You could also say that its Y is equal to $8 times X, or 8X. So those are two different ways we could look at it. And then you can use this equation to complete the rest of the table. Let's do a different number. Let's say I walked 30 dogs. And let's bring it down to my equation right here. I'm going to erase this part of the equation because I want to show you how we plug in. So earnings, we don't know the earnings. Earnings are equal to $8, we bring that down, per dog, but now I'm talking about 30 dogs, so it would be 8 times 30 dogs. So my earnings would be equal to 8 times 30, and how I like to multiply is I do 8 times 3, which is 24, and then I add this 0. Because I'm multiplying 3 by 10 to get 30, I multiply this answer by 10. And when we add a 0, it's like multiplying 10. So I would make $240 walking 30 dogs. That's pretty good. Maybe I will change my profession to a dog walker. Okay, so this is what we would like you to do. We would like you to press pause on this video and then work on questions 2, 3, 4, and 5. For each of the tables, we want you to write an equation that expresses y in terms of x. I'm actually going to do the first one with you, and then you can press pause, try the other 3, and then press play again to find the answer. So the first thing that we do for number 2 over here is we look at all the inputs are x, and then we look at what happens to them to get y. So how does a 12 become a 10? How does an 11 become a 9? And how does a 10 become an 8? Remember, the same thing has to happen to every single x. You can't have different patterns going on. I noticed right away that when I look at 12, I can take 2 away and I get 10. If I take 2 away from 11, I get 9. And if I take 2 away from 10, I get 8. So I'm thinking that for every x, I take 2 away from it to get y. So what is y equal to? That's how we start our equations. Y is equal to x minus 2. So for the rest of these tables, you're going to write y equals, and you're going to figure out what do you do to x to get to y. Okay, so how did you do? Let's look at question 3. 3, you can write it a few different ways. So I was looking at the x's and how they became y, and I said, okay, 10 times 5 is 50. Divide that answer by 2, and I got 25. 12 times 5 is 60. Divided by 2, I got 30. 14 times 5 is 70. Divided by 2 is 35. So originally I came up with that first equation, y equals 5x divided by 2. But really, you can write it as y is equal to 2.5 times x. So there's multiple ways to write these sometimes. Question 4 is simple. It doesn't seem simple at first because a lot of people think that it's only a multiplicative relationship between x and y, but it also could be additive. So what are we doing to x? We're just adding 5 to x to get y. 5 plus 5 is 10, 4 plus 5 is 9, 3 plus 5 is 8. So it's as simple as that. And our last question, number 5, y is equal to 2x. We're taking all the x's, multiplying them by 2 to get to y. Alrighty, so for our final question, I want you to compare the y values in the chart to the corresponding x values. Write an equation to show the relationship. Why don't you press pause and think a little bit about what are you going to do with the x's to get the y's. Remember, you're not doing something to the y to get to the x. You're doing something to all the inputs, or x, to get to the y's. The y's depend on what you're doing to the x. So the x's are independent and our y's are dependent. Alrighty, so you should have gotten y is equal to 2x plus 2. So for all the x's, you should have multiplied them by 2 and then added 2. Now, I'm going to show you a trick that you can use to sometimes help you figure out what you're going to multiply x by. Something I noticed, that if there's a pattern going up in the y's, that pattern in itself might be the number you multiply x by. And we'll go into this a little bit further later on. But look at our y value of 6, and then 8, and then 10, and then 12. I'm noticing that my answers are going up by 2's. So maybe that pattern in itself will help me figure out what I'm doing to the x's. So I looked at the number 2 and multiplied it by 2, that same number that the y values were going up by. And if I multiply 2 by 2, I get 4. And then in order to get to 6, I added 2. And then I was seeing if that was the same pattern for x being 3. 3 times 2 is 6, add 2, it's 8. 4 times 2 is 8, add 2, it's 10. 5 times 2 is 10, add 2, it's 12. And there I was able to find out that the equation is y's are equal to 2x plus 2. I hope this video has helped you learn a little bit more about comparing the x and y values and creating equations.